The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of IBM.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another interview in the podcast series All In on AI. And today I have with me yet another spectacular guest, Kunal Sawarkar. Hello, Kunal.
Hi, Martin. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for joining. And let's jump right into that because during the preparation, you shared with me a couple of articles you've been already interviewed on, and I must say that I almost felt like most of the good stuff has been already mentioned there. So I'll try to fill in those big shoes. And reading your articles or the articles where you've been interviewed, there is a certain quality, a distinct quality to your professional story apart from the usual. I studied this, then I did this, and after I got this job, and now I have this one. So you've studied electronics engineering, but you started working as a Java programmer because there were not enough electronic engineering jobs in India back in time. And as you started, working as a Java programmer, you basically turned down the project a couple of weeks into the new job, which was a bold move, and you jumped on a newly created AI project with little to no knowledge about that. And here you are right now, a distinguished engineer, chief data scientist, and one of our AI leaders. And what I see in that story is a powerful combination of curiosity, self-trust, and also, which is really dear to my heart, a Socratic discussion with everyone. So the peers, reportees, managers, clients. Would you agree with that? And if so, how have these qualities evolved throughout your career?
No, that has been a perfect description, and thanks for the kind words, Martin. And in a way, you are absolutely right that it has been driven purely by incessant curiosity. When I started doing AI or data science, neither the word were common. In fact, the word data science wasn't even invented. It used to be called data mining, which was a blue collar, dirty job that nobody would actually prefer to do because it was too hard and didn't had as much market respect as it is today. But it is at the end of the day solving a difficult problem. And that is exactly what drove me to that particular area is I want to solve some of the challenging problems. And doing so, slowly the field evolved, and I must say I'm lucky. I could have been doing some other work which wouldn't have become such a big fancy today. But in a way, I would still have been happier in a way that I began doing what I really wanted to do, which is to be a problem solver. Like do solve the unsolved problem, and along the way, make hope that you have an impact on the industry, on the society, and if you're lucky, on your own career.
Yeah, it kind of rings the bell when I've read that you're actually the rock climber, right? Yeah, and you use this analogy like you can basically take so many different paths when you are climbing a rock. And even if you're climbing the same rock, you can get better and better, find a new way. So that's kind of the analogy I see in that, right? Um, And to give our listeners a little bit more zoomed in perspective on the actual project you've been involved in, so you described in one of your interviews yourself as an in-house entrepreneur. And could you elaborate on that? What that means in the context of AI, product development, and most importantly, what drives your process of turning ideas or solving problems and
Mhm.
creating the impactful solutions?
Yeah, I think you describe it correctly. It's like my job is to take the ideas and convert it into a product and then bring those product to market to have a business impact. So that is exactly what I have been doing in various capacities over the year. So I describe in-house entrepreneur because whenever there is a new technology that IBM wanted to go through, then it is an investment for us to set up that lab, to build that product, and then test out, is it really good investment for us? And I was the guy who was doing that over the years.
Mhm,
So I originally did it with Cognos. We were built some of the first forecasting engine back in the day. Then I was part of SPSS Product Labs. SPSS is one of the oldest AI company out there. People think like AI was invented yesterday, but the company has been around since 60s.
mm,
And my job in the SPSS was interestingly to scale the AI over the web platform by combining the predictive modeling to make the business decisions. So
mhm,
we used to call it decision management. Like, how can I take a decision for a given situation? And it was a bold move around for 10, 15 years back because industry wasn't ready, more complicated in a way. The cloud wasn't ready. It was very hard to deploy such a solution. So that was, I would say, a risk that we took as a company. And then while we were successful in theory, the business impact was limited. But the learnings and the models and the product we built live on. So,
mhm,
and that is the thread that you bring in to the next product that you built in.
mhm,
So the recently when I like came back to IBM, it was to change the perception of Watson by starting a dedicated group of data scientists as a form of data science elite team. And the job that was given to me is go and do solve some problem that has not been solved with the help of Watson.
mhm,
And doing so, we help generate the mind share for our product. Uh, After that, IBM decided with the leadership of Irwin that we need to make a big inroads into the ecosystem engineering or the what we say is the partner world. So much of IBM's revenue only comes from client and so little come from partners. By the way, a
mhm,
partner for the listeners who don't understand is another tech company like who is not IBM, like
mhm,
Adobe, SAP, or anything else. And if you look at our competition, like AWS, Microsoft, then they have a large share of their revenue coming from partner. So we decided we want to grow this. But when I joined the organization of the partner ecosystem engineering, we realize we have no products which are specifically designed for the partners.
mhm,
So if I want like our partners should embed our AI into their product, then how do I make it possible? And that is what I led the embeddable AI portfolio. It is to build the product that are easily embeddable for partners. It
mhm,
is to build the self-serve digital experience so that our scaling we can scale the products easily and scale it to thousands of customers. And third, build the mind share about the investment and the dedication IBM is putting into the partner world. So that was like starting your own in-house greenfield project where you have basically given a charter to run with, and then you
Mhm.
have to build the product, build the operations, build the marketing organization, as well as the mind share, and then show the impact. And I'm happy to say that now the partners account for twice the revenue than when we
Mm.
started some 3, 4 years back. So that is the latest story of like an in-house entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And this is successful because there was a learning some 10, 15
Yeah.
years back where we knew what wouldn't succeed.
Yeah. So I have 2 points to that. So first, it's kind of by the way, or for your information, I've joined IBM 10 years ago, and the reason was that I majored in psychology,
Mhm.
and during that time we used SPSS for the research purposes. So I learned how to command SPSS, and one day out of the blue, a headhunter from IBM called me like, okay, SPSS, we are building the analytics team on client experience. Would you like to come for an interview? And I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And here I am, 10 years after that, still working in different part of company. And it kind of also nicely illustrates what you've been talking about. I've been in so many places and still was given a chance to grow and to move. And it's similar to the fact that, okay, 10 years ago, IBM was pretty close-minded in a way that we had our own set of products which we were providing to the customers. We weren't really, you know, working with an open, the open source code and so on and so forth. We weren't providing much of the products which could be embedded
Hmm.
through the partners to the larger audiences, right? And I can now see this shift. So that's what you've been mentioning as well. And just yesterday, a friend of mine who's doing his doctoral thesis in AI ethics pinged me and
Mhm.
told me about the DeepSeek, right? The
Mhm.
the new model, the breakthrough in the field, and he was like, okay, so what's the feeling in IBM about this? And I was like, for us, it's cool because we are running open source whenever possible. We are using different models from different companies, not just from our own. So we are trying and providing those to the clients as well. So we are trying to, take the best of what we can. So for us, it's not really a struggle. Maybe as for other companies such as OpenAI, they will need to catch up. So I'm glad to hear that actually behind that story of becoming more flexible and innovative company, there's a face, and
Hmm.
that face is yours, right?
No, yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, it had, I mean, I wish I could say that it was easy to change the mind of everybody in IBM. Even today, I wish I could make all our assets open. And that
Mm,
is my current goal is we need to be a company which is more open in how we engage with our partners rather than, as you said, traditional way where I talk to customer and I bring them in and I give them on a garden path on how to solve their problems. I think the world has changed. People have a attention span of a few seconds and
mm,
they want to be empowered to try everything on their own. Like, I just want to do everything on my own. And that is the shift that we have to go through. I think the positive thing is that everybody understand that we have to change.
mm.
We may not agree on what exactly the change should be, but there is a realization that we need to change, and that itself is a positive development.
Yeah.
Even on the deep sake, uh, I mean, I think it has been a little overblown, to be honest. I was using DeepSeek for last many months for a specific task of text to
Mm-hmm.
SQL. It was doing a really cool accuracy that was being generated by them. The reason I think DeepSeek is little overblown is for two very different reasons. One is that DeepSeek's own development is based on Llama set of models. So they
Mm-hmm.
have made a very good use of Llama architecture, then input output tokens and the data. So they did not invest in architecture, they did not invest in data. And even the other part, which is the hardware config, they knew what works. So in a way, imitation is always cheaper than innovation,
Mm-hmm.
which has happened. Now the shock and awe that everybody is going, oh, how can you train a model with such a low cost? Is because you exactly knew what you were doing. So much of the research you don't have to do. You are basically optimizing a working model like Llama for a specific use case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is then there is such a big shock in the stock market? Because I somewhere felt that it is not a battle of like doing a cheaper versus costly, but open source versus closed source. And now people think, oh, closed source shouldn't be enjoying such a high valuations, which
Mm-hmm.
I have been writing for a really long time. That the valuation for something like Nvidia and others are overblown. And and this is funny, is like in 2024, I wrote my own top 10 predictions. And the number one prediction was that by the end of the year, the capex cycle will turn. Everybody who has
Mm-hmm.
invested billions in AI would like to see the result because it normally follows the 24-month cycle, like 2 years. Okay, show me the money after 2 or 3 years. And if you invested 100, $200 billion and you don't see a path to profitability,
Mm-hmm.
then that will drive investor jittery. So I think the correction was going to happen no matter what. The DeepSeek was just an excuse for somebody to sell, which they were looking to do for the
Mm.
capex correction, and reallocate capital to the places where they think they will get a more value for the buck.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I mean, I think it is the battle between closed source and open source, and IBM as a company, we have picked our side to be on the open source side, and that is where I think we should be focused on also in
Mm.
a longer term, because
So
that's what will
mm.
going to drive the enterprise AI as well.
Yeah. So before we move to some other topics, do you think that this position of IBM really betting more on the open source in the last couple of years is something which can actually help company to sustain these shocks better? Because what we saw, with OpenAI, and I mean, I just checked the stock prices, and they are going down, they are declining, even though, if you take the uphill very fast, and probably there's either some magic happening or some bubble which is about to be burst. So you think that IBM is in a better position, kind of like, I wouldn't say we are not competing directly against OpenAI, and that's business to customer. But in a sense, do you think that we are in a better position to kind of manage any changes which might come in the future in the AI development? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And it is primarily because we have to find our niche in the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our niche in the AI is that if you look at, I mean, forget AI for a while, you look
Mm-hmm.
at the operating systems as a market, then what operating system world runs on? It is Linux, right? And we own Red Hat, and that is our biggest driver to profit. But in general, I mean, approximately something like 70 to 90% of the world server runs on Linux, which is open
Mhm.
source. Now, if I have to make a bold prediction, then it will be like within 3 years from now, 70 to 90% of the Gen AI workload, especially in enterprises, will be run on open source models.
Mhm.
So there, I don't see that enterprise will invest heavily in a closed source model.
Mhm.
There will be a path for the closed source systems, just as there is a path for Apple iOS. And
Yeah.
that is where OpenAI models will primarily navigate towards, which is consumer AI, like building a search engine which is highly optimized in that problem. But if I want to build a scalable system in Gen AI, which can sustain and be robust, then as a customer, as a client, as a partner, I will put my all the bets on the open source.
Mhm.
So, and that is the area where IBM wants to be in. And here is the growth opportunity for us as a business. You have a model, doesn't matter DeepSeek, Meta, or whatever. And then you have a consumer, let us say a bank or a healthcare company who wants
Mhm.
to build Gen AI application. The applications aren't going to talk to model on their own, right? There is a huge middleware that has to be built, the platform, the governance structure, the development structure on how to orchestrate, build, manage, evaluate. And that huge middleware, which I try to call AI middleware, is where the big opportunity is.
Mhm.
And that AI middleware is robust to which is the number one model in the behind in the basement layer, because we are more focused on what does the customer want and how can we connect it
Mhm.
to the foundational layer. So I think this is a great opportunity or the right place for us to find our niche in the market and make sure that we we do what everybody's struggling, which is how to actually make money out of Gen AI. Right
Mhm.
now, it is still something that everybody believes has a potential. It's cool, it's fun, everybody sees potential, but then so few Gen AI application has gone to production. Why?
Mhm.
Because we are lagging that middleware which can run things in Gen AI
Mhm.
in production.
Yeah, so that's an interesting idea actually, that because the models they just come and go each couple of months from different companies, and now the new companies come and go as well. So basically, if we focus more on how to be a partner for a client who has a certain need, right, for a solution or a certain problem, right?
Mhm.
And we say we can be the middleman, we can build a infrastructure, a development platform, governance, we can take care of this, and we can actually tweak it so it works with different models based on your preference, or on the models which are yet to come, and we can switch gears, and start using a different model for your particular use case, like in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. That's where the niche you mentioned for IBM should be, right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
this is exactly what I consider is to be the holy grail from the
Mm-hmm.
point of view of our customers. What customers care is not what model they use, but whatever they are building today, whatever they're investing, is it scalable, and is it gracefully extensible to the newer
Mm-hmm.
development? So if the underlying model changes tomorrow, then will my architecture be extensible, or I have to burn down the whole investment and do it again? And can it scale to large number of use cases that they have? So building that AI middleware is our sweet spot, but also it
Mm-hmm.
is very sticky. I mean, the beauty of the middleware is that if you build a middleware, let's say somebody built an application using Oracle database, then it is likelihood very high that person will retire before somebody will rip apart any Oracle database from the production. I
Mm-hmm.
can say the same with DB2 as well. I had recently been part of a deal where customer renewed DBT for next 10 years. They said, just imagine, they know that they are not changing DB2 in
Yeah.
next 10 years from their prod system. And that is the stickiness. If you can embed anything as a part of the middleware, then it is extremely expensive to rip apart and change it. They may build a new system with a new approaches and the software, but to
Hmm.
change anything that has gone into production and rip it apart, there is no business sense. I mean, why would somebody make a business case and investment to do so of something which is working fine? So we want to be that player who knows how to take GenAI to production using a robust, scalable, and extensible middleware that is powered by IBM's products.
Hmm. All right. So, and I mean, we'll get to the Gen AI questions very shortly. And thank you for his insight on, the market perspective and strategy we are or should be taking as a company. But I have one question, which is, I mean, it's super interesting to me. I'm a fan of big, bold ideas and solutions, right? And I guess you're too, because you've mentioned in one of your interviews that the part of your job you really enjoy is listening to the problems that have no solutions at that time. And actually, one of your standout projects involved creating the first AI baseline to estimate marine plastic pollution. And I just want to ask how did this project come together, and what kind of impact do you see AI could have on these big problems of humanity, such as environmental changes, that would be, or challenges that would be, something which I would really like to explore in a couple of minutes here.
No, that is, thanks for bringing that in. I think that was one of the project that I'm most proud of.
Mm,
Uh, I have spent doing AI for years, and a lot of it was in marketing or improving sales or pretty another version of a recommendation engine, like which movie
mm,
you want to watch next or which video somebody will click on. So predicting cat videos is fine for the business impact perspective. But when we talk about an impact on society, I realize while talking to United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, that they are still doing things which in a very arcane manner. So the pollution fighting board, and this is the top governing body, they are still using Excel sheets and have no way of either collecting the good data or actually knowing how much is the plastic floating in world's oceans. And
mm,
if you cannot measure it, then what you can do about that? Nothing, right? If you cannot measure, you cannot eliminate it.
mm,
So after talking to you, and I realized that we had this goal of eliminating world's plastic, which sounds like a fancy objective set in 2015, and then the development on that was zero.
mm,
Why? Because nobody knew how much plastic is there, and then nobody knew how to find that out, and then nobody knew what we should do, and if even if somebody is making an effort, how is that tracked?
mm,
So that is where I came up with this idea: is why not use AI to estimate the marine litter based on whatever data which is collected globally. So used a really obscure method in AI. It's called, and which you might have been aware of, called as Markov chain MCMC. So Markov
mm,
chain based simulation, and then using a Monte Carlo based Bayesian approach to estimate how much is the marine litter is existing in the world's ocean, and then presented this approach to the global community of expert and statistician, and we have been able to convince them to adopt this as a baseline. And then on behalf of IBM, I presented the work to United Nations Environmental Assembly held in Oslo,
Mm-hmm.
where all the environmental ministers who has a goal of eliminating plastic, especially the small countries like Norway's or the Costa Rica, have adopted that as a standard of what we will adopt to drive the progress.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you will try to connect the big picture here with the dots, then it all starts with, is this the problem that has no solution? But then can we do something about it? And I was really like fortunate to have such a problem come to me, which had been waiting for a solution, but then it was nobody thought like AI could solve this,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a big potential. We do not apply the brightest of the brains to some of the toughest challenge facing the planet, which is very unfortunate, but that is the case. So be it fighting climate change, right now US had seen a lot of wildfires, and so many engineering innovation could have helped there, or fighting the floods, or fighting anything which impacts our societal problem. So it's a pity, but I hope that changes and AI has a much more longer term net benefit impact on the
Mm-hmm.
society, and not just be like Gen AI be impacting the business productivity, but also sometime the broader society picture where we are still leaving this huge problem to the volunteers, while all the brightest of the brain works on increasing the stock price by a few dollars. Nothing absolutely wrong with that, but we always use the term work life balance,
Yeah.
and I think there should be even if we dedicate like 1 or 2% of our brain power, not just money, but brain power of our annual utilization to some of this big problem, I think the impact will be huge.
No, I remember that like in in 50s, I was just watching one of the history classes on actually it was like history of US in 20th century, and soon after the Second World War, there were actually the labs, they call it the labs or something like that, where they employed people just to think about the problems that needs a solution. And if you had a problem, or you thought of a problem, you would just go to the blackboard and you wrote it down. And somebody else might have picked up that problem, telling that, okay, I think I have, I have a hunch how this could be solved. And so you just went back to your office and started working on that. So I think this is what you mentioned is kind of a illustration of that. Like for a while, everybody who's willing and able could actually invest a little bit of his knowledge and his power to actually go wild and beyond what the business needs, because in the end there's no business without society, right? And we see some threats, be it global climate change, be it fake news, whatever it is, whatever you can think of. There are huge problems which probably are waiting to be tackled by brightest of minds, right? So I really like this
And
approach, and
that's a fascinating call out. In fact, I remember reading about that, and that is how internet came into being,
yeah,
because somebody
yeah, yeah.
was, yeah, somebody was just imagining that what would happen if they bomb one communication center, and they said, "Oh, let's build this resiliency. You can talk here and here," and that's how internet
Mm,
was born, like DARPANET originally called. But they were just imagining the difficult problems that has no solution, on imagining or trying to contemplate and find a solution which then has a huge positive impact on society over a long period.
Yeah, so that would be great. I think we should propose to Arvin during his one of his hours. Yeah, I'll do that definitely. Uh, okay, so now let's go back to actually Gen AI. I have a couple of questions here. So the first one seems to be simple. Let's see how it how it evolves. So, as someone with years of experience in artificial intelligence field, do you see a Gen AI, generative AI, as a completely new branch of AI, just a different application of machine learning, or something which is fundamental different? What's your take on Gen AI versus the predictive AI, for example, you've been working in for years?
That's a very, very good question. And I did think about that for a while. And if I have to put an analogy on there, then you look at the mammal intelligence, like dogs, cats, monkeys,
Mm,
you would consider them as intelligent beings, right? But then there is
yep.
a human intelligence. Now, what is the delta which separates a mammal intelligence from the Homo sapien intelligence?
Mm. It would be the language, right?
Would be the language. You guessed it. So we now have this silicon which we can talk to. Earlier, we were only talking with another cerebral cortex, but now we
Mhm.
have silicon based cortex we can converse with. And the reason humans were so much able to be smarter than everybody else because we could accumulate all the knowledge with the help of a language, then store it in the help of books and everything, and then pass it on. So we then became a multi generational species. I still know what my 500 years, 500 generation before happened in humanity. Because as if I have to go back to the oldest of the
Mm,
manuscripts being written, whereas the animals only has their transactional knowledge, which is encoded, hard coded into their genes. So it is a different way of communicating as well as understanding to an entity that we were not able to do before. But then what is an AI? It is a reflection of rest of the humanity put together in a box. So all
mhm,
the humanity's knowledge is then put together in a box which you can now talk to. So I think the ability to converse with him is fundamentally a game changer in what
mhm.
an intelligence can do. I think it in compared to the predictive analytics, it's not going anywhere because we all have our animal instinct. No matter how evolved we are still food is our number one instinct as with everybody else, and so is that uh, predictive analytics structured based relation system will always dominate because they are very lightweight, very accurate, and very precise for solving a specific task.
Mhm.
But when it comes to expanding the realm of what a system can do, Gen AI is capable of doing that much better than others. And we normally tend to think in terms of the what is the architecture that has been built and what is the big breakthrough like DeepSeek, R1, R2. All those are incremental changes. And if you look at human evolution, everything is incremental. And then we look, oh, now this we are completely different species. So that is what I think about Gen AI.
Mhm.
The idea of an artificial brain that you can actually have and continue to learn, it's possible for the first time. It may not happen, I guess, in 1 or 2 years, but in 20 years
Mhm.
from now, we could have that.
Mhm.
And we could have a collective intelligence being born, which are having probably no idea of individuality as we know it today.
Mm.
So it's a fascinating area we are entering in. I do worry
So,
about what impact it will have on relationships if people
mm.
have artificial boyfriends and girlfriends, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, that would be perfect, and in a while you would be just fed up with them being so perfect, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that basically when I think about it, I've just recently read a wonderful book which was called A Brief History of Intelligence. I don't remember the name of the author, but I might include it into description. And actually, there were like five breakthroughs starting from bacteria all the way to the humans. So hence I knew the answer. What's the difference between mammals and humans? Mammals they have the ability to mentalize, so they can actually not only simulate before they do something, but they can also store some knowledge, but they just store it for their lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So if the society, the monkey society, for example, breaks up, so all the knowledge they had is lost, while we have the ability to communicate with each other and, more importantly, pass it on to the next generations. And I can imagine, as you mentioned, that some 20 years from now, we can have that all stored as a collective, basically as a collective consciousness or collective information base, and also not only that, but extend it and have the system, any
Mhm.
AI system, basically go beyond that and show us the connections we weren't even aware of. And that brings me actually to one of the topics you mentioned you would like to explore, and that's the impact of generative AI on enterprises and future of work, right? Uh, and in that area, what are the major changes you foresee in how business is operating and how teams collaborate, as Gen AI evolves? What are the things you see coming in the future in this area?
Um, I think, I mean, everybody's worried about what impact Gen AI will have on the jobs, right?
Mm,
Like, basically, the idea is businesses want to boost the productivity and they think Gen AI can do so. But then, well, how do you boost the productivity? Do more with less people. So somebody will be losing their jobs. And that has been the fear which is driving a big part of society. I, on the other hand, thinks this is a net positive impact
mm,
because, I mean, for such a long time, we have been boxed into this concept of a career, which
mm,
defines us the way a corporation wants to define. So it's like you learn something in a college, then you go and apply that skill in one company and then build expertise on that. And before you know, you're a middle-aged person, then starting to navigate the corporate structure, and then you retire. So it's like you become a one-dimensional being in terms of your own existence. And that existence is defined by what job you do, and we think like this has always been a case like that, but it has not been always been a case
mm,
like. In fact, the career is a 20th century invention. The word didn't really exist before that. And the idea, as in you said, you studied something else, then you did something like studied electronics, but then did Java for thing, and now doing AI and so many different paths on the way. And I always think like that is what everybody internally aspires to be. There is an old world, especially in the US or in the Western philosophy, called as a polymath.
mm,
It means that a person who is good at doing multiple things. In fact, the medieval idea of a successful person wasn't somebody who has a good high paying job with a nice title. which is what a modern definition is. It
Yeah.
is somebody who can write, something who is well read, somebody who is good in one of the sports, somebody who is good in one of the art, like painting or sculpting or whatever, and somebody who is good in philosophy and sciences. And everybody I have met in my personal circle or in the professional has some interest, but they never explored them.
Hmm.
So I think Gen AI gives the people the opportunity is not to define their life by what they study when they're 20 years old. It
Hmm.
gives you an opportunity to reinvent yourself as you grow older and get better at it. So you should not be doing the job purely just because it pays you to do so. And that I think is a great opportunity that Gen AI gives to the way people have been defining careers.
Mm.
I mean, what it will happen is like people should be doing what they really love, and that is not the job AI will ever take away. Because you cannot mimic the even like a simplest thing like a chef. You will always pay a premium to go to a restaurant where chef is serving the food versus a McDonald where it is served out
Yeah.
of the humanized robot. The same will be true if you are writing, if you are a good copywriter, then you will not be replaced by the AI copywriter because the creativity will always shine in there. And right now, what I'm seeing is like we always had so many jobs. Like if I want to build a website, I have four-member team. Somebody who comes up with an idea, somebody who converts into a mock-up, somebody who convert that mock-up into an HTML development code, and then somebody fourth person who does it and converts it into a production-ready code. And I think, do I really need four-person? All I should be able to do is the one guy who
Hmm.
actually is an idea of how the website should look like. And then the conversion of mockups to the code to the deployment all could be taken care by Gen AI. And I can tell
Hmm.
you that more people would love to be on that creative spectrum than purely taking instructions of converting one business requirement into a technical requirement and technical requirement into a deployment. So that is the change I think is going to happen. You mentioned at the beginning is like you were also driven by curiosity in what you are doing, and that is the big impact that will have that enterprises will have to go through when they think of future of work.
Mm.
Like jobs will be driven by what is the core of doing who is doing the core of it and not who is supporting to get this job done. And this will be a net positive for humanity because I see so many people depressed in their work purely because they don't find their work fulfilling and purposeful. And we find our work fulfilling and purposeful when we think we are applying something creatively as well as doing something that others aren't doing. We apply our individuality than taking the orders. And it may not happen today or tomorrow, but over a 10-year period, I think this should be taken up as a net positive rather than being fearful that it's taking away the job. It's only going to take away the low level and menial level jobs that people may want because it pays, but not necessarily what they really enjoy.
Mm. Yeah. So, and I'm glad you actually mentioned medieval period because I was immediately thinking about what we learned in a philosophy course on at the university, and that was that basically the last person who was considered the absolute polymath, like knowing most of all the fields, was Baruch Spinoza, and that
Mhm.
was like in 16th century, I believe, or 17. I'm just not to confuse people. But basically, after that, we acquired as a mankind so much knowledge that not a single person could, you know, have all the knowledge or command all the knowledge, and we started to specify our jobs, which in the end in 20th century became known as a career. So
Yeah.
you studied something, you start in a company, you're there until you retire. basically in the ideal case scenario. Or if you switch companies, you go and work in very similar field or identical job. And now what you're telling actually that you can take the Gen AI, you have a curiosity. My example, my private example would be that I started to, because I had a lot of, contact and knowledge of data analysis, right? But not on a statistical level in terms of I'm not good at math, and I have little to no knowledge of programming as well. But then when I started to do one of the courses on what's next, and there was a Jupyter notebook, and there was an issue, it just wouldn't run for some reason, and I was trying hopelessly for like 3 hours to search for an answer on Google. Um, then my fiance just came by and she told me like try ChatGPT or whatever model you are using. It might fix things. And like in 30 minutes, I had a solution and I had also an explanation why the actual code in the Jupyter notebook was not working anymore. And I was like, yeah, this is a good time to get back to my old, kind of idea of getting better in data science. So I started taking the course on data science, and whenever there's a problem I cannot resolve, the first thing I try to use is actually use Gen AI, and not only fix this, but explain me why it didn't work, right? And I can imagine that this might be true in different fields. So now you could actually have now you have a tool which can guide you through all that knowledge acquired by other people for your own private or professional use case without actually the need to go through, university courses and so on. So you can switch the careers much easier. So is that what you've been talking about, right?
Yeah, it is to go even beyond the career and go
Mm,
to what you're really here for and explore your potential and be happy about it rather than just, as I said, start a life and then end the life with what you started with. So I think the right term was probably not the medieval period, but the Renaissance period. I think the another
yeah.
term for the
Mm,
polymath was the Renaissance man,
Osman, yeah.
and somebody like Leonardo da Vinci, and then Benjamin Franklin, who was a scientist, philosopher, politician, and a theorist, and like a great writer. So those the idea that of a modern equivalent of being an expert into something is that you have this complex system designed, say like Linux, and then you have somebody who understands the system and connect with the broader world. So that is what most of the time we are doing, like debugging a Jupyter notebook, because you are inside that system of a Python notebook and
Mm,
kernels and Jupyter interface. But that's not the end. It is means to an end. And I think Gen AI brings you closer to the end without relying on so many intermediary to get your job done. So it is a great opportunity for you to focus on what you really like to do and get that impact out, right? And not be bothered by, oh, I don't know how that system works.
yeah.
You have to learn the on what you want to do and why you should be doing it, and not be burdened by the intricacies of understanding the every single system that we keep designing. Leave it to somebody else, just as you would leave the chores to somebody else on
Yeah.
running the computer.
Yeah. All right. And I see that we are running out of time, and I think, I mean, I have so many questions for you, but my proposal would be probably close it off for a session here, and we can, have a chat in a couple of months to see what changed, and maybe go to a little bit more details on the specific topics, because I really loved how this interview evolved into be an overarching beyond just the technology and the models and what's currently going on. You were really nice to actually give it a context, and as you mentioned, it should be just a mean to reach some kind of goal or solve a problem. So I would prefer to leave it here and meet some other time. Would you agree?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
thanks, Martin, and thanks for a very interesting discussion on AI as well. Normally, it always gets bogged down by nitty-gritties of
Hmm.
technology and models and business. But I'm glad you brought in a much more wider topics into the discussion. So I thoroughly enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. So thank you very much once again, and hope to see you soon on this podcast.
Same here, Martin. Thanks for having me and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you.